So here's that article from Willamette Week. And this is a really interesting article from the standpoint of bringing in, and it's, I don't even know what the title is, and maybe I can scroll up here and show you. I had to modify this article to get it on the screen for you guys. Rising taxes and a falling quality of life have some Stumptown residents voting with their feet, is what the title was. The old saying is a conservative is a liberal who's been mugged. That's a good one, isn't it? That's a good one. I mean, it kind of makes sense. You know, everybody's all hunky dory about how their city is till you get mugged. And then you're like, we need tougher on crime. We need more crime. I mean, we need more police. We need more crime. And you're like, hey, but you were the one that wanted to defund the police. You were the one that, put the defund police in your window. But now that your store got broken into, where are the cops? Conservative is a liberal who's been mugged. In Portland, many liberals are dodging stray bullets, losing catalytic converters to thieves, and sidestepping tents. Then they open their tax bills. I thought that was a great lead in because you're like, okay, here's what they're dealing with. And then here's where the rubber hits the road. I'm not paying for all this stuff. I'm just not. Maybe they aren't voting Republican, but some are voting with their feet, getting the hell out of a city that once stole their hearts, driven away as taxes rise and quality of life declines. So this is what's going on. This is the struggle in Portland. This is, and Portland more particularly, because what's happening in Seattle, what's happening in LA, what's happening in San Francisco is happening on turbocharge in Portland. It just is in real time. You've got, Portland went so far liberal that the situations that they've got going on are to the point where, people are literally, all right, we got to get the F out of Dodge, right? We got to get the F out of Stumptown. Multnomah County has lost residents for the past 3 years, according to Portland State's University Population Research Center. Before 2020, it hadn't lost people since 1987. Year I graduated from high school. Great. And that was just a 1-year blip in an upward run that began in 1984. In the most recent PSU study, their estimate for the year ended July 1st, 2022, the population fell by 2,321. And you might say, that's not very much, but they've had a massive influx for years and years and years. And now, all right, we got a little bit of an outflow. What's going on here? The cause was outmigration, PSU says, which is a fancy way of saying people bailed. They left. That may not sound like a lot in a county that has 812,000 residents as of July 1st, 2021, but it's a reversal of fortune for a city that once attracted migrants from other states the way locally roasted Chemex coffee draws men with sleeve tattoos. It's a Portland reference, right? What's up with the sleeve tattoos? I'm not saying they're bad, but these West Coast cities, everybody's got a sleeve tattoo. I was looking at a kid I knew on Instagram that he's been doing the real estate gig. And, a whole bunch of tattoos up and down his arm. It's like, okay, we just gotten to a point where that seems to be okay. Tattoos back in the day when I was a kid, only outlaws had tattoos. Sailors had had tattoos and rock stars had tattoos. Nobody else did. Then the NBA came along and everybody got tatted up, and now everybody has tattoos, right? Josh Lehner, a state economist, says his department had expected a rebound in 2022, but it didn't arrive. The longer the slump in population lasts, he says, the less likely pandemic-related moving patterns are to blame, and the more likely it is that Portland has a problem. Are we just a year off, he asks, or is there something fundamentally different? Yeah, there's something more fundamentally different. So Portland's got a few things going on that really are hampering the ability to draw people in. For some longtime Oregonians, the U-turn is hardly puzzling. Portland has switched from attracting new arrivals to repelling its current citizens, especially those with a few coins in their pockets and feet that start itching at tax time. Stu Peterson, 65, grew up in Portland and has been selling commercial real estate for decades as a partner at Macadam Forbes. Did I say that right? I have no idea. He says the recent outflow of Portlanders with means is something new in his experience. I've never seen money move out of here, Peterson says. Nobody ever wanted to leave Oregon. It's a beautiful place. Most evacuees are high-wage earners who are fed up with crime, taxes, and homelessness. in that order. That's an ugly spiral. And so, the crime has to do with the drugs, which has to do with the homelessness. And then you're going to have a tax base that's eroding. Downtown Portland's tax base eroding. San Francisco's tax base eroding. Seattle's tax base eroding. Because you got less businesses. There aren't enough businesses to keep everything going. There's not enough people there to keep everything going. The exodus includes names with the cachet in Portland's most exclusive clubs. Jordan Menashe, chief executive of homegrown Portland real estate firm Menashe Properties, left last year for Dallas. Marquee developer Mark Edlin also appears to have shifted his primary residence eastward. He canceled his Oregon voter registration last year. In an interview, Edlin said he'd always planned to retire in Sun Valley, Idaho, where he lives now, but he's still doing most of his philanthropy in Oregon. Yeah, I always planned on doing this, but this just kind of gave me that little extra bump out the door. That little extra, I need to exit stage left. The taxes are pretty close to the same, Edlin says. I haven't done the math. Founders of Baker Ellis Asset Management, LLC, Barnes, Ellis, and Brian Baker, packed up their money management firm and moved it across the Columbia River to Vancouver, Washington. I mean, that is not far. And it's my understanding that Vancouver is starting to get some of the real impact from Portland as well. But it's nowhere near as bad tax-wise or, all the other stuff we're talking about. Different political climate, and Portland in particular. I was watching Mayor Ted the other day sitting in a hearing, just taking a beat down from some business owners. And it was like, would not want that guy's job. Mayor of Portland, tough gig. Whoever inherits that job, you got your hands full there. That's a real go-getter that wants to take that job on. Property records show that Ellis moved his residence north too, buying a place in Ridgefield, a little bit further up in Washington. Ellis didn't return calls seeking comment. Few upper crust Portlanders would discuss moving. Some wealthy expatriates worry that Multnomah County or the Oregon Department of Revenue will pay special attention to their taxes on the way out, says one real estate broker who declined to be named. That wouldn't happen, would it? Hey, we need you to pay some more taxes. How about down in California where they're talking about, chasing people out of town with their, what was that? That was an excise tax on wealth, I think it was what it was. Yeah, these cities are going to run out of out of money for their budgets. They're going to start going after some crazy stuff, and it's going to push more and more people out, and that whole thing is just going to continue. Regular folks were more willing to talk about their decisions to go. In the past month, Willamette Week spoke with 6 people who have left or are preparing to leave Portland. All of them are upper middle class. Most of them described bittersweet feelings about departing a city that once drew them like a magnet or even a lover. I've had so many people leave comments of the Portland I knew 25 years ago. Man, it is dead. It is not there. The Seattle I knew 25 years ago, it's not there. It's changed drastically. And Portland in particular, because I think if you're into the whole Portland thing, you're like really into it. I mean, it's a thing. And, there's still, so many hardcore people. There's nothing going on here. It's pretty okay. It's good. I get those comments every now and then. It's not as bad as the media makes it out to be. Well, the data says otherwise, and your rich people are moving out. So I don't know, but none of them had second thoughts. Katie Schneider was one of them. She moved to the Woodlawn neighborhood of Northeast Portland in 2009 and says she quickly grew accustomed to the occasional sound of gunfire outside her house. When I read that, I was like, maybe, did you initially think about reconsidering your move, or did you just kind of go with it and just do that? I'm hearing the lazy river sound in the background, the babbling brook sound in the background of gunfire. Then someone opened fire from a car on a summer evening in 2020, killing 22-year-old Jordan Lee Lewis on Deckham Street, just around the corner from her house and in front of Breakside Brewery, where her family frequented. 7 months later, after putting her kids to bed, a car crashed in the intersection in front of her house. Her husband found a man gut shot and bleeding. 3 parked cars had been struck, and police found 60 shell casings in the street. If that doesn't make you want to get the heck out of Dodge, I don't know what does. You know what I mean? That happens in front of my house. All right, I'm out of here. Don't really care where I'm going. Anywhere but here. In April 2021, 2 months after the car crash, they moved to a rented house in Vancouver, where she worked as a school counselor. Her husband, a bridge engineer, worked from home. A year and a half later, they moved to Anacortes. That's up here, way up north and west, kind of up by Canada. Schneider wasn't alone. Our whole block moved within 2 years, she says. Schneider, 42, is a liberal who still loves Portland, but she couldn't raise her family in a city where leaders don't seem to have any solutions, despite having coffers full of taxpayers' money. See, that's, it still identifies as a liberal, love the liberal policy, but has got that disconnect from how did we get here? Let's take a look at the policies that got us here. How did we get here? I don't understand that whole disconnect. It doesn't make any sense to me because when I run into somebody like that, I'm like, hey, liberal policies, exactly, how you got there. They're like, oh, there's some things that Portland could improve on, but it's not all that. And all I can think of is, it is. Let me scroll down here. I don't mind paying taxes, but I need to know that they're being put to good use, Schneider says. If they had been, I wouldn't have had to move to a different state. All right. Well, it's not just taxes, right? It's a lot of other stuff going on. How about the, cars and dodging bullets in your front yard? How about that? I mean, not every city has that, do they? So what were the mechanics of how you got to that point? What happened there? We got some room for improvement. Still love Portland though. Still love the tatted up baristas and all that stuff. Most of the people who spoke with Willamette Week were leaving for two reasons: high taxes and a growing sense of danger. Schneider spoke openly about the former, as did some others. All were eager to speak about the latter, about taxes. Lauren McCabe says she left in August 2021, mostly because her kids, now 8, 10, and 12, struggled with school closures during the pandemic. Her oldest attended Cathedral School in Northwest, where she says teachers sometimes hustled kids in from recess because nearby tents had caught fire, raising fears of toxins in the smoke. Why'd you guys move? Well, why'd you move your kid's school? Well, there's homeless encampment next door. Every now and then, they'd be lighting up their fentanyl and it would catch the tent on fire. And I didn't want my kids to smell the toxins in the air. That'd be the least of my worries. When those tents go up, my kids are not going to school there. Hardcore no. And yet these people, because of the way they believe, well, it's, not their fault that they're in a tent shooting up all day. People actually believe that a lot of the folks in tents aren't on drugs. And now the data is starting to come in that it's too hard to disbelieve. There's so much evidence of, all right, shenanigans in the encampments are happening on the daily. McCabe, who voted for Barack Obama twice, then Hillary Clinton, had a number of unpleasant encounters. On one occasion, McCabe's husband and son waited for the school's gates to open, and a man sat down behind their car, shot up, and left the needle in the street. Sounds about normal. I mean, what's wrong with that? I mean, the guy, he just a little shoot up in the street. Pretty normal. While walking to Salt and Straw on a date night, she and her husband were chased by a woman who was talking to herself. Those are pretty normal circumstances in certain areas of, Seattle, certain areas of Portland, certain areas of LA, San Francisco. That's just normal. And that's why people are leaving, right? McCabe and her husband are both chiropractors. Pandemic restrictions made it hard to operate. Yeah, it's hard to operate when you can't really touch people or see people, be within 6 feet of them. And new taxes squeezed their budget. After 18 years in Oregon, McCabe, 43, decided it was time to go. She sold her practice and bought one in Naples, Florida. That's interesting. Florida. Huh. So many people are moving to Florida. So many people are moving to Texas. They're just getting out of Dodge. They're going Idaho. I don't think I was ever leaving Oregon, McCabe says, but she did, as did some of her new neighbors on the Gulf Coast. There are a handful of Oregonians who live near us. We share stories. So you've got like entire neighborhoods. Hey, let's all migrate to Naples, Florida. Some Portlanders bristle when they hear about people leaving. Stephen Green, founder of Pitch Black, a competition for Black entrepreneurs, say the panic about Portland is overdone. It's not that bad. It's okay. I mean, it's pretty normal to have somebody shoot up while we're waiting to get my kid into school. The tents burning up my kid's school. I mean, it just happens. We had a lot of people move here from 2008 to 2012 because we were number one on this list or number one on that list, Green says. Portland still shows up as like a city for, healthy activity, number of trails, number of bike paths. It's a massively popular city for those activities. That's if you can get past the tents, and all this other chaos going on. They came here to consume the culture, not add to it. A lot of folks who are leaving were never committed. I'll be here in 30 years. All right. Well, if that's your thing, stay there and do your thing. Others are wavering in that commitment. Developer Rosalind Hill grew up in Portland and bought her first commercial property on Northeast Alberta Street in 1991. She's been committed to the neighborhood since removing graffiti and picking up trash. There's a lot of people trying to help out, but there's a lot of people saying, no, we're done. This isn't working out. She's growing weary of the blight and of paying taxes that don't seem to pay for improvement. Recently, she returned home to find a man sitting on the bench in front of her house on North Lombard, eating chicken, throwing the bones into her garden, and charging his phone on one of her outdoor sockets. This is an entitled group of people that have overtaken these West Coast cities, and this is just what they're doing. They do not give a crap because there are no repercussions for their actions. And then, that's the least of her worries. It's the people breaking into the homes that we're seeing on the regular. Add the steady drip of new taxes, and it came to drive her mad, especially the new preschool for all tax. I paid for my own kid's preschool, Hill 78 says. I worked 3 jobs to do it. Yeah, but, in a city like Portland, you're going to pay taxes and you're going to have just a bunch of stuff that makes 0 sense because that's why you live there, right? In August, she bought a duplex in Vancouver. She's been fixing it up and hopes to move sometime soon. So people are, getting out. Paying taxes for issues that don't seem to change how the city looks and feels is disappointing, Hill says. I live where I live. Portland is my home, but paying additional taxes with no improved outcome is hard. You get what you pay for. And I'd also say that you probably voted in a bunch of those taxes. You did, right? Starting in 2017, Multnomah County voters passed several tax measures aimed at improving life in their burgeoning city. After Metro and the county levied taxes to combat homelessness and provide preschool for all, Portland now has the second highest total state and local income tax rate in the nation, 14.69%, exceeded only by New York City at 14.78%. Now that's a top marginal tax rate, meaning you pay it only on income above $125,000 for individuals, $250,000 for married couples filing together. By comparison, the New Yorkers at 14.7.8, those are making $25 million or more, single or married. That means plenty of non-plutocrat Oregonians are paying taxes rivaled only by those levied on Gotham millionaires. So that's why you've got a situation of where the upper middle class is saying, I don't think so. Unfortunately, just as taxes went up, quality of life went down. A record 101 homicides. We've talked about that. How many times? 101 homicides, and that's after 92 homicides the year before. So you got these shootings going on, tents everywhere. You just got a rough situation. How about this next one that we've talked about a bunch? 11,000 cars stolen in Portland last year. 11,000 cars. I mean, there's 800 homeless encampments. Stu Peterson and his cohort argue that people like Schneider who flee the bullets are canaries in the Stumptown coal mine and that we had better cut taxes soon or else. You don't have the ability to in Portland because you're going to have to drop infrastructure. So what are you going to do? That's why I say it'll be interesting to see the next mayor of Portland, see what they come up with, see what spin they have. Things are likely to get worse too, they say, unless Portland voters come to their senses. In December, the state said activists had gathered enough signatures to put a measure on Multnomah County's May 2023 ballot that would levy a 0.75% tax on capital gains to hire attorneys for tenants facing eviction. More nonsense. So You've got some massive, massive rent increases in Portland as well. Massive. There is no affordable housing in a lot of the areas. And now you're going to put a capital gain tax to hire attorneys for tenants facing eviction? I mean, aren't there enough, services out there already where you don't have to do that?